Let me close the door. Because it's echoing. All right. We are live. Thank you. All right, we'll call this meeting of the Government Operations Subcommittee to order. We will begin with House Bill 1127. Tyler?
That's actually me, Delegate Rosenberg.
Oh, sorry. Please proceed.
This bill decreases from 15 to 9 the total number of members of the Garrett County Memorial Hospital Board of Governors. The bill also reduces from 7 to 4 the number of at-large board members and reduces from 5 to 3 the number of affirmative votes required to elect an at-large board member. This bill was brought by Delegate Beitzel. We do have a letter from the Garrett County delegation, which is Delegate Beitzel, in support of the bill. There was no opposition. I believe it was brought in because this hospital has been acquired by a larger hospital, so they don't need necessarily such large board membership.
I move the bill.
Is there a Senate cross file?
There is.
And do you know the status of that bill?
I can check it as we speak.
Certainly.
Sorry, I just joined. Could somebody tell me what the bill is?
This is the Garrett County Hospital bill.
Oh, okay.
It's Senate Bill 804 is the cross file. It is on third reader, so it passed second reading. The cross file passed second reading.
I second the motion.
Motion for favorable is seconded. All those in favor of the favorable, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, the ayes have it. Okay, House Bill 272. Tyler?
House Bill 272 is returning to the subcommittee. So some of you may recall from prior discussions, the bill as amended thus far. I believe the first amendment was, no, I don't think we took a vote on the amendments yet. So the bill as drafted would not preclude members of the General Assembly from acquiring names and addresses of individuals on a distribution list in connection with legislative action. And then the bill would come up, insert a definition of distribution list and specifically not include State Highway Administration and Maryland Transit Administration lists and sociological information that they use to contact individuals and property owners in relation to eminent domain actions. There were two amendments offered and discussions started. The first one removed the provision for General Assembly members having privilege to access certain information. And then the second amendment proposed is requiring that anyone requesting this information has to sign an oath declaring that they will not be using this information for commercial gain. And it's included through using existing Public Information Act provisions. The penalty for anyone who violates the provision would be subject to a $1,000 criminal penalty.
All right. So there are amendments there are two sets of amendments today, correct? But
Yes.
Are there prior amendments you said?
They were both brought in last week and discussed, and we just were running out of time. So we're revisiting those two amendments with this bill, since there were some questions on the first amendment. As I recall, I don't want to speak for members, and certainly if they've changed their minds, was generally consented to. And then the second one, there's just some questions on that one.
What, just so we're clear, What was the first amendment?
So the first amendment removes section 403 from the bill. So the provision giving authority to members of the General Assembly from accessing certain information that would normally be protected by the public information.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. The amendments that we discussed last week. Let's deal with the amendments we've discussed prior to today first.
That would be both. Okay. That would be Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. They were both addressed it to some extent already.
Oh, so the two amendments before us, the amendments that
there are no new amendments.
Huh?
There are no new amendments.
There are no new amendments. Okay, now I understand. Okay, thank you. So, Delegate Carr, which amendment would you like to discuss first? They're both your amendments.
So amendment number 1, I think that was in response to Delegate Kipke's comment. And that takes out the member of the General Assembly getting special abilities to obtain this information. So that is amendment number 1.
Okay, so that's 384. That's the one that would strike 4-103C.
Correct. 436384 is the full number.
And this amendment would also strike existing law. Is that correct?
No, it's just removing it from the bill. So it's not being, because it's not being affected. So it doesn't need to be in the bill anymore.
Okay.
It does not modify existing law.
On that. Okay. It would have been brackets.
Correct.
It was, okay. Quick recovery. Is there discussion about that amendment, which would strike any special protection or preference for legislators? No discussion? Is there a motion? Is there a motion on this amendment?
This is my amendment?
Yes.
Second. Sorry, I was looking.
Moved and seconded on the motion. Amendment that would strike legislators, special treatment for legislators under 4-103. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The amendment is adopted. Okay, the second and the next amendment. Delegate Carr.
So the second amendment responds to the concern that was mentioned by Delegate Shalega and Delegate Kipke about, what if someone obtains one of these eminent domain notices that, contains information that's already in the land records. How can we prevent the potential situation where that someone were to use that for commercial purposes? So the amendment is intended to address that scenario, in the spirit of compromise and collaboration.
Okay, does everyone have that amendment before them? That there must be a written application and a statement signed under oath that is not intended to be used for commercial solicitation. Is there any
Move the amendment.
part of
second
the
it.
amendment? Great, thank you. There are no objections to the amendment?
That
Amendment
was
is,
bipartisan support, bipartisan move.
remind me to say that.
On the amendment, though.
Yes.
Don't you remember the rule? That if your amendment gets put on the bill, you have to vote for the bill. Never mind. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
So move.
And it is
Second.
seconded. All those in favor of the bill as favorable as amended, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? I don't see everybody. No one is opposed. Okay, with the amendments, it is unanimous. What hath God wrought? Okay, Public Safety 911. House Bill 989. Delegate Krebs, do you wish to speak to the bill? Or are there amendments?
Yes, sir. There is an amendment. I think, Tyler, we want to make sure it's conforms with the Senate amendment. It has to do with outages and it's very technical. So I want to make sure we have the right one. But it's just something that Verizon and Comcast agreed to about how long an outage should be and how they have to report. So Tyler, did you have that from over on the other side?
I do not. I only discussed that 990 with your staff. I'm trying to see if I have it.
I have one. It's 153426 that was supposed to have been sent over. I just want to make sure it's conceptually just about the number of minutes affecting an outage. I don't know if you can, I just want to make sure we have the right version of it.
Oh, sure. What was that number again? 15?
This is the number I want to make sure this is the most recent. It's 153426.
Okay, I'll double check that. And say it's just affecting the length of time that an
Yes,
outage triggered that
it affects-
provision.
Yes. It's very technical, and it's an agreement between the providers about how long this outage should be. So I just want to make sure we have there was a little glitch in what the number said. I don't even understand it. But I just make sure we have the most current one. So maybe we can vote it and just make sure it's,
Well, the
Make
key
sure it's the
here
right-
is that this amendment conforms this bill to the Senate bill.
Senate, that's what we were trying to do, yes.
Correct, good.
And if it's just adjusting the length of time, I think that's straightforward enough to be able to vote on conceptually unless
Yeah.
anyone
I mean,
objects.
we got this amendment here, but there was a version of it and then it got tweaked a little bit. I just want to make sure there were so many different versions around that are just a little different. So I want to make sure it's the exact same one.
With
That's
that
all I-
understanding, there is a motion and it is seconded on this amendment. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill.
Second.
It is seconded. All those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 All those opposed? No one is opposed. Okay, House Bill 1013, general provisions, standard time, year-round daylight savings time. And what would this bill do, Tyler?
House Bill 1013 is contingent on two, there are two contingencies with it. So the first would be if Congress approves, or sorry, actually first would be if all of the states in the Eastern time zone adopt similar legislation. And then if Congress amends or repeals a current law that prohibits year-round adoption of daylight saving time. If those two contingencies are met before December 2026, then Maryland would officially enter a new time zone along with the other East Coast states and adopt standard time. I'm sorry, they would just adopt standard time perpetually. They wouldn't change the time zone.
Standard or daylight time?
It would be daylight saving time, would be the year-round.
Yeah, don't say standard.
You're right.
You got me confused.
Confusing use of that word.
Sorry, yes, perpetual, whatever.
Mhm.
All right, now so let me try and say it myself. So what the bill would do would contingent upon every other state on the Eastern currently, or how
It's
many
currently
states?
in the Eastern time zone.
Contingent on every state in the Eastern time zone? Or some
Correct.
states? Is there-
Everyone within the Eastern time zone.
And then the Congress has to say yes.
Correct.
Okay. And what is the amendment? I'm offering an amendment. Could you explain the amendment?
Yes, so Delegate Rosenberg, through on behalf of other stakeholders, offered an amendment that instead of that first contingency being all states within the Eastern time zone, it would be specifically if similar laws are adopted in Delaware, District of Columbia, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And then Congress permits the year-round adoption of daylight saving time.
By that, and are those other 5 states, other 4, well, the district, excuse me, they aren't a state yet. We're working on it. Are those other entities moving forward similarly, or you don't know?
They don't have legislation at this time. There are many states who are considering it at this time, but there's nothing on the books in those jurisdictions yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So is there discussion on the amendment? The amendment would provide that we would move forward contingent on federal action with only needing the concurrence of Delaware, the District of Columbia, Pennsylvania, and Virginia.
Yes, and I misspoke. I double checked my notes. In 2019, Delaware adopted this provision already. I'm not sure if it's contingent on a certain collection of other states.
So Delaware would again be first in the nation?
They actually were
They
beaten
were
out by
forced to adopt-
Florida. If we're being strict,
Huh?
they were beaten out by Florida in 2018.
Okay,
But I do see some questions from delegates if you want to address those.
sorry. Okay, I can't see everybody. Hold on, sorry.
You have Delegate Shalega first, followed by
Thank
Delegate.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Delegate
Pleasure.
Zalega, and then Delegate
Thanks.
Hill.
So Hawaii and Arizona both follow standard time. They do not do daylight savings time. Same with Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and Samoa. So, why don't we pick the other one? Why are we picking daylight savings time instead of standard time?
So my understanding that for the most part, so certainly the national trend is daylight saving time permanently, even though those states already had that in place. Since then, 15 states have already enacted some form of legislation adopting daylight saving time to be the year-round system. And so that's why the bill drafter, that's why the sponsor stated his preference for daylight saving time.
Thank you, Tyler. I would contend that, all things COVID important, this is not something that I think we should be entertaining. So I'm going to vote no on it out of principle.
Well, Delegate Shalega, I'm going to volunteer you to come over to my house tomorrow morning and get up with the kids.
Oh, don't you forget my grandkids live with me. So yes, I'm living your reality.
So you know.
And Delegate Hill.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to be clear. We really sort of have a couple of choices if we want to stop flipping back and forth. One is, as this bill offers, to agree that if other neighboring states go to daylight savings time permanently, we will, but we'll still have to wait for the feds to allow it because we're not allowed to do that. The alternative is that on our own, we can opt out of daylight savings time, and in a matter of months, we can just be standard time. We'll still be different part of the year from our surrounding states, and we'll be different from some of the other states if it ever goes through to daylight savings times, but we could always flip back, right? So it's either do something now that does nothing, but put something into place for if something eventually happens, or it's do something now. Is that about right, Tyler?
Yes, that those Maryland has the authority that if it chose to through General Assembly and the governor, then it would be able to just choose to not follow daylight savings in the March to November period. If it wanted to do that instead, that would be sort of the opposite approach of this bill.
Okay, and for those states who have already adopted consistent time, whether they're the states that did daylight savings or the states that have done standard, I guess it actually is for the daylight savings. Are they still on hold? Or, in other words, are they actually practicing year-round daylight savings, or are they also waiting for the feds?
Most of them are, my understanding is that they're waiting for, they would have to wait for congressional approval to officially adopt daylight savings time year-round. So none of them would be, and I know some of them included provisions exempting or giving authority to local jurisdictions. For example, Florida, because the northern portion of Florida extends further west than most of the state. I believe they actually have already for a while been in their own time zone, and so they were handled differently in that legislation. So it's not exactly one method, but everyone is waiting for congressional approval since it is required.
Okay, so that practically speaking, the only ones that are practicing year-round are the ones that adopted standard and just opt out of daylight savings.
Yes, which would be most of Arizona and Hawaii, and then the list of territories that Delegate mentioned.
And geographically, Hawaii is so unique that it doesn't really matter what others do. Arizona's bigger than Maryland. We're bordering on all these other states, so it might create some little problems for a portion of the year if we did it as we get up in the morning and drive to DC or drive to Delaware. If we just decided to be standard, it would create some logistical problems for a lot of Marylanders.
that's likely.
Okay, all right, thank you. I mean, and I'm just asking these questions because I would love to adopt, I would rather just go to standard so we can actually do it. I'd love that this bill's here, but I just don't see how the daylight savings changes. If we adopt it, we're not changing anything at this moment in time. And I just wanted to be clear that if we really wanted to help Delegate Kipke's children and the parents of those children, that we would simply opt out of continuing to do daylight savings time and deal with the other issue if and at such time as the feds or the other states around us act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Okay. Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to, I guess, jump back on what Delegate Hill was saying, my big concern is, and I'm fine with standard time, but because so many of our Maryland residents work in DC and work in Northern Virginia, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but it's got to be huge. It might cause some serious concerns for them that their family's running on standard time, but their work is running on daylight savings time. I mean, we're just so interconnected to what goes on in DC and what goes on in Northern Virginia that if it's not something that's done in the mid-Atlantic, I think it's going to cause some serious problems with a lot of these, with a lot of families and their work, I guess, situation. We're not always going to be in Zoom. People are going to go back to work sooner or later. And if your family's getting up to go to work at 6 a.m. or if you're getting up at 6 a.m. to go to work, but your family's on 7 a.m., I think it's going to cause a lot of problems.
If I may, Delegate, this bill, my amendment, I think addresses your concern. My amendment says that it would be contingent upon Delaware, the district, Pennsylvania, and Virginia also requesting or providing that they would be on standard time year-round or daylight time year-round, contingent upon federal approval.
Sounds like a great amendment.
Thank you.
If you can get that
Thank
through,
you.
then I'm good.
Huh?
If you can get that through, then I'm good with it.
Do you want to move the amendment?
I'll move the amendment.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right, just so everyone is clear, under this amendment, under the bill as introduced, any change would be contingent upon every state in the current Eastern time zone by statute saying we wish to be daylight savings time all the time. Under the amendment, it would be contingent upon Delaware, the district, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, and then the federal government, as it would be under without amendment. So that is the amendment before us would make our action contingent upon that of 3 other states in the district. Let's do well, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed to the amendment? Okay. Bill as amended, is there a motion?
So move.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like the Speaker Pro Tem had her hand up.
I appreciate your assistance. I
Well,
can't
it
see everybody. Madam
Thank you. It
Speaker
wasn't-
Pro
it-
Tem.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It wasn't for a question. I was just letting you know I wasn't in favor of it.
Okay, you are not in favor of the amendment or not in favor?
No, not the
Okay.
amendment or the bill.
Fine.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those, or anyone opposed in addition to Delegate Sample Hughes?
Shalega is I'm opposed to the bill. I don't care how you amend it. I'm not opposed to the amendments. I'm opposed to the bill.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so it is only 2 against. Okay, I believe that takes care of our business, does it not, council?
That's the full agenda. Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, we're not allowed to be neutral, right? We have to vote up or down if we're not chair. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we will see everyone. The full committee reassembles at 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
Zoom time. Eastern Daylight Time.